Welcome to the Waiting List podcast. Tell us a story.
It's like many things you start building from scratch.
And then I'm like, wait, I really do like watches because
you've seen so many watches that makes you excited.
I think I really do like watches.
Yeah. I think it's a great way to see if you are a watch enthusiast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Waiting List podcast. I am joined today by my two co-hosts, Jacqueline and Daniel. Our guest today is Alvin Wong. Alvin is the editor-in-chief of Crown Watch Blog. Crown Watch Blog has a print magazine and an online website, so please do check them out. In our previous episode, we actually interviewed Alvin's colleague, Melissa. So I am actually looking forward to seeing how different their perspectives are in terms of journalism and the watch community in Singapore. So let's begin. Okay, so Alvin, were you always into writing? How did you end up at Crown Watch Blog?
Wow, how much time do you have?
As much as
for you, maybe 10 minutes.
It is the first question.
I've always been interested in writing. You know, as a kid, I like to read. Of course, writing would be a natural extension of reading, right? And when I went to school, I studied journalism. That was because I guess I was pretty sucky at everything else, math and science and Mandarin and engineering and all that. So after I graduated, I felt like that was the only thing that I could do and be happy with. So I got into magazines as opposed to, you know, writing fiction and all that kind of thing. So before I joined Crown, I've been with Crown for the past since 2013. So I can't do the math right, as I said. So before that, I was with another watch publication called World of Watches. I was there for about 8 years. So how I got into writing about watches was it was really a job. Basically, I was answering an ad on the papers, and the company was this company that did a fashion magazine, a men's fashion magazine, as well as a watch magazine. So I went in like totally didn't know anything about either subject, and then, you know, I just went in and then started building my experiences and my skill sets from there.
Okay. It actually
That's a good.
Yeah. Sorry,
Good
Jacqueline, were
summary.
you going to say something?
No,
or
I
are
was
you
gonna
still
be
watching your raccoon videos?
No. I was gonna be like, that's
Yeah.
more than sufficient for a summary.
All right, that's the end of this podcast.
Yeah, thanks, bye.
Also, when I was listening, I just couldn't help but see like Alvin's face because
Why?
of the blur background. Like sometimes it cuts into your face.
Right. So what
Like
does it look like?
sometimes you had like 1/4, like 3/3 of your face when you're speaking. But it's okay. How do you do it? Can I do it on myself?
You have to turn on the background filter, right?
Oh, really? Okay. I'll do it later. Okay, continue. Sorry, guys.
Okay. Oh, I see it. Background filters. Okay, anyways. I want to put the beach one.
Can we each put on a filter?
All right. Background filter. Oh, I see. Amazing.
Each one's really cool.
Can you
Come
guys
on,
see my?
guys.
Can you
This is the
see?
first time.
Can you guys? Oh my
Yeah, for
Can you
all our
see my
listeners,
filter?
like Long Long is playing with the filters and she's found a dog one and she's now
How
gone
come?
silent because she loves dogs.
How come I don't have it on my thing? I don't have a filter.
And that's Jacqueline being very disappointed.
Yeah, I don't have it. I have reactions and apps, and that's it. Where did you
Yeah.
find the button?
The 3 dots at the top right of your screen.
View?
Oh, yeah, and then you
Guys,
select
this-
that, and then you can choose a virtual background. And
I don't have 3 dots. Okay, guys, continue. It's okay. I'm very sad, but you guys continue.
How can you guys?
Like, can I?
How can you
What's up,
guys
guys?
take me seriously? All right, guys, this is my new look. Okay,
okay,
but
it's fun.
Dude, just leave the pig one.
The pig one?
Yeah.
Oh, you want this one? This is this one. This is appropriate.
Dude, you know
Okay.
I have to say the pig one really suits me, so I kind of want to leave it on if you don't
No, I
mind.
like the mustache.
Okay, so
Hmm.
talk what was the last point that you made about I can't even take myself seriously. So sorry, I have to
Don't even look at yourself.
I cannot. This is so unprofessional. This is the most professional thing he's ever done. Guys, I was like,
We'll have to cut
I
this
can't
part
Start
out.
now.
Yeah,
All
cut
right.
this part out.
Yeah, we'll cut this
All
part out.
Okay, so the last thing he said was how he wrote for fashion. I just want to say several journalists that, well, at least me and Dan have met that write for other watch publications. I
Right.
realized they always start off writing about fashion, and then later it goes from fashion into watches.
Hmm.
So there's different parts to this question. So one is it actually easier to write about fashion, or is it easier to write about watches? Not based on your passion, but in that kind of format that you have to write about something. And for people who don't know, you're very into music, right? So why
That's
didn't
right.
you think about writing about music?
Just purely to that you can't really make money from music journalism in Singapore because there isn't a scene to speak of, to a big enough scene to be able to generate that kind of audience, a readership audience, right? As opposed to maybe our neighboring countries like Indonesia, where they have a huge domestic music scene, and you could actually cover the scene that way. So to your question about which is easier to write about, watches or fashion, I would say I had an easier time with men's fashion. Although I must say that when I was starting out, I felt like a fraud because I wasn't very fashionable at all. And then you had to, cover all these brands, right? And so with watches as well, you go in blind, you can't even pronounce the name of the brands, and you don't know the parts and what a tourbillon is, a chronograph is, and so there were so many things to learn, right? But when it came to writing about fashion or men's fashion specifically, I think there are things that you could intuitively pick up, like colors, trends, styles, and as you give your opinion on men's fashion, right? It felt like you didn't need to have so much experience to give a sort of a valid or solid opinion. With watches, it's different. With watches, you could give an opinion on things, but if you didn't have the knowledge or experience to back up your opinion, right, you would sound like completely like a knobhead.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a question. Yeah, because you said you liked writing, from an early age, and enough to even get your course right at university and study journalism, right? Because you were so passionate about it. But I'm sure before you think about writing for magazines, do you think about writing a book, being an author? And why would you not want to go there and then also kind of just develop that rather than going straight into magazine?
Oh, definitely, man. When I was younger, I'm 46 now. So back then in my
You're you're how old?
I'm 46 now.
You're
So-
46?
No wonder you were using that blurry thing.
What do you mean? What
Like,
blurry thing?
the blurry filter. Oh
This
my
is
god,
not
you
blurry
look
filter.
Oh
You
my
look
god,
young.
you
look
do not
the same.
okay, 46, first of all, for people who are listening, it's not old, but you do not look 46.
Yeah.
I thought you were like your early 30s.
32.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say 32. Yeah.
Cannot be. If it was early 30, if I was 32, I would have been writing about watches since I was 12. It's impossible.
Yeah,
right?
what's wrong with that?
Wow. We
Wait,
gotta get you on another episode, Alvin, for you to share your skincare routine.
Skincare.
Water and a bit of sun.
Oh
Wow,
man.
exactly your background right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Hang on. Just ignore them. Because like I want to
Yeah.
know the answer to my question.
So when I was in my early 20s, I always thought that I was going to be writing a novel of some sort, just purely based on ego, like, oh, I want to, have a novel out by then, because I remember I was reading The Beach by Alex Garland. That became a movie, right?
Yeah,
So when the book
Leonardo
came out,
DiCaprio. Yeah.
when the book came out, I was like deep into like, going to beaches, going to Koh Samui and Pangan, partying and all that. And when the book came out, he was like 26. I thought I'll be writing a book before that. But as I got to working, writing for magazines for money, then that passion gets smaller and smaller. Like the writing for a job became the priority. So your time or passion for like developing fiction or poetry writing kind of gets diminished. But having said that, I still harbor hopes of like, writing, and I do write stuff apart from watches.
Of course.
Like what?
Music, of course. Music. I write music and a bit of poetry as well. So I have some new tracks out. So there's a plug for my music.
If we talk about like poetry, I mean, there's not many people that I know that write about poetry. But somebody, I can't remember who we had on. Also, it was Tim Osso. Was it Tim Osso?
Right. He draws.
Somebody was doing poetry, I think. And what is the benefit?
I think it was James.
James who?
Like
James.
Do you mean write poetry? Melissa was also writing poetry.
Okay, might be Melissa. So,
oh wow.
What does poetry offer? Like, especially in the modern day.
Oh wow. A poetry offers a point of view. A poetry offers some truth that you cannot find in regular everyday like magazines or websites or reading material. It's a form of expression, right? Basically, and you could express something that is vague or abstract, but be very specific about it. I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly, but
so you're saying it's a different form of expression through writing. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, of course.
I think what he was trying to say, like, from your perspective, like offering a new perspective, in a sense, it also kind of puts your thought into order, right? Like sometimes your mind might be a little bit messy, but then when you write things out, like, does it help you to see things more clearly, or it's just more of an artistic expression and nothing really logical to it?
There's logic, of course. There is expression, there's art, there is wordplay. It's all these things, right? And then for me, writing poetry keeps me open and sensitive to things around me. Like the world is not just economics or watches or luxury or putting food on the table. It's all these things, but yet you see things and you experience things and cultivate worldviews through daily livings, through interaction with people or interaction with art or music, and to channel that form of expression into a few stanzas. I write poetry. I could be writing about my memories with my grandmother. I could be writing about this lady I saw at the shopping mall that has a fake LV bag, and I channel that emotion into poetry. And these two examples, you can check it out on my very basic
Where do you
website.
write? Yeah, where do you write?
I put some of those on taichumusicclub.com.
Okay.
So that's a plug.
Taichu. Okay.
T-A-I.
How do you spell Taichu?
How do you spell it? Yeah.
T-A-I-C-H-E-W musicclub.com.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's got some music there as well as some poetry there as well.
Okay. So I wanted to say that So I read 2 books recently that were printed by local publishers in Singapore, and it was just books filled with poems by local authors who wrote poems. And the thing I realized was because poetry is kind of fun, because you can rhyme, you can use like all the things that you said, right? All these techniques. You can write about things which are really heavy. So one whole book, so one was all about like memories, like with grandparents and so on. The other one was all about Indian racism. So it was written by Indian girls who basically, actually they're very real things that are happening in Singapore, how someone might look at them in a different way, how they sometimes get insulted by just comments and so on. So the whole book, when you're reading it, you actually feel like, whoa, I can totally feel what you're saying. It's just that in any other form, you would sound like you are ranting. Like you could go on and write a blog post and someone will read it and be like, whoa. But in this kind of format, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah.
So do you think like because it's got thought behind it, you know, rants, obviously they very much come across very knee-jerk reaction, very reactive, and like that's how it comes across as a rant. But a poet, maybe some prose, comes across as somebody that thought through it, processed it, and then tried to articulate it in a particular way. But there's actually a book that, you know, that book, what's that book called? That you and I are reading, you know, that one where you read the lesson a day.
The Stoic Reflections.
So a lot of that is from these old Romans, right? And a lot of the form of that isn't, you know, proper. It's like a bit like poetry and prose, and it's about philosophy, and it makes you like every time I have to like sit down and really think what it's actually trying to say. You can't actually get it like as you read the text and you think, okay, I get what you mean, right? You actually have to think the deeper meaning behind it. It's interesting how I for most part I think that poetry, you know, even with social media avenues, hasn't really hit, well, I think, the mainstream. You know, this is something that I would come across on a regular basis, right? Is it because that it requires a lot of thought?
To write or to read, or both, right?
Well, both, yeah. Both to create that kind of content, and two, everybody wants like immediate gratification on social media, right? So if you have to read something, think about it, and then before you comment, it's a delayed kind of process. You know, if you see a lot of comments on Instagram, it's very reactive of like what they immediately see, and they want to say awesome, they want to say that sucks, you know, stuff like that.
But you could be talking about anything, right? I mean, if it's poetry as a medium, I mean, on social media, everything is just about instant reaction and gratification, right? Say, if we want to bring it back to horology, right? A watchmaker spends decades crafting, you know, like perfecting his craft, comes up with this amazing creation, puts it on Instagram, and and then there's a poll to say whether it sucks or whether it doesn't, right? So it's just I guess if you were to sort of view it through the social media lens, then, you know, of course, you know, people are going to be reacting to it a certain way. But if you are talking about, maybe you could read poetry on a book that's so antiquated, or either online, and then you take time with it. So it's just a matter of how you process it in your own space, I believe.
But I have to say, like, on a mass scale, isn't when I look at music lyrics, it looks like poetry, like even the format.
It does. Some do. I mean, one of my favorite musicians, singer-songwriters, his name is Leonard Cohen. He's passed on already. And if you listen to his music, it is just basically poetry set to music, and they're just wonderful things.
But then there's like lyrics like Coldplay, which, you know, make you sing along, and you're singing, you know, you're singing it in the car. And then if you break it down, I don't think it means a lot. And even, you know, back in the day, Oasis, a lot of what, you could say there's like
the best lyric
paraphernalia. Exactly, right? Like when it comes to the chorus, you always just find yourself singing along. But if you actually analyze it, it doesn't really mean anything. But everybody, even if you go to the festivals, they get so into it, right? It's almost like it doesn't need to mean anything. But you switch that around to, let's say, well, I think in China and Hong Kong, right, most of the songs are love orientated, like so wishy-washy, like so abstract about love. It's so, yeah, it doesn't really do it for
when
me.
it comes to songs and music, I believe it's different because you've got music to back it up, right? And you've got that moment where you heard the music, right? And it's all about connection, right? You know, so sometimes like when you listen to a song, it could be as shallow as hell, but you know, it took you back to a place where you were out with your friends and you were having the best time of your life. That's all that it meant, you know, and that could mean the world, you know, without having any like really deep lyrical content to the song.
Yeah. I have a question. So Alvin, I mean, from the brief time that we've been chatting, it sounds like you're a very like emotional person and you really like expressing yourself through songs or lyrics or a poem. So if you had to choose, and this is a little bit sadistic, but if you had to choose like only one of your senses, of your five senses, so like be it your sight, your was it hearing, olfactory, what else, smell, and then touch, like if you had to keep one for the rest of your life, and also like I would imagine like express yourself through that way, or just to consume music or whatever, if you were to choose, you know, hearing, what would you choose and why?
If I lost my sense of hearing, I wouldn't have, you know, I wouldn't be able to. So I have to keep hearing, but I can't.
Well, exactly. So like, which one do you choose? So because if you keep hearing, then you can still listen to your favorite artists like via their songs, but you can never read poetry. But you can still write. So which one would you choose?
I was going to go with sight first. I mean, that was like the instinct, like because you want to absorb all the beauty that you can around you, right, or the ugliness or whatever. But now that you've mentioned it, I would think hearing. You know, if you hear music, conversations, and then you could process it as well. Yeah, I guess that would be it. I have a friend who was blind since birth, not by choice, because when he was born, like they kind of put him in an incubator that was like the settings were messed up or something like that. So so he became blind as a result. And yet at the same time, when we talk about music, right, we were able to like connect and communicate in a very meaningful and deep way. So he didn't have a sense. He didn't have the sense of sight, but he had the sense of hearing. And yeah, maybe I will go for hearing.
You know,
Long be like taste buds.
Yeah, I know. But then I thought about, I think taste and your sense of smell is connected, by the way.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay, so many years ago, do you know Master Chef, right? The winner was blind.
Yeah,
okay, so that's
that
one
lady.
thing, which that's what I find really fascinating.
Is it a Vietnamese lady?
Yeah, and then basically
when
one sense goes, obviously the other ones become heightened, right? Okay, but anyways, my main point is I'm reading this book now called You're Not Listening by Kate Murphy, right? So she's basically saying that people don't listen enough and so on. They said that when people pass away, the last out of the five senses, the last one to go is actually hearing. So everything will go slowly, but you're supposed to be able to keep hearing. And they said, like, if you look at it on an evolution kind of like point of view, there's a reason for it, for survival purposes. It must be like back then we heavily relied on hearing. So you could be hiding in a bush, but you have to just like listen really carefully if some animal was coming for you, kind of thing. Yeah. So I always thought it was very interesting. And then like even with the Daily Stoic that me and Dan read, they keep emphasizing like, look, you have 2 ears for a reason. Like you
Yeah,
only have
yeah.
one mouth, so you should
Yeah.
actually speak less and listen more. So I
Yeah.
always thought
Yeah,
that was funny.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like when we're sleeping, and then you know how there's a state where you know you're kind of sleeping, but your mind is still a little bit unconscious, but you can hear everything. I think that has like evolutionary purpose as well. It's like, um, you know, you can let your guard down a little bit for your like to rest physically, but then the early humans still had to, you know, maybe be cautious of their environment. So I remember like, and this is a little bit weird, but then I remember like whenever I enter that zone, like right about when I'm about to fall asleep or right about when I'm about to wake up, I can hear things. I know I'm asleep. I'm still a little bit unconscious, but conscious at the same time. And then I can a little bit like manipulate my dream a little bit. I just have to think really hard about what I want to like dream about, what I don't want to dream about. And then I can kind of I even once, okay, this was back then when I was obsessed with Justin Bieber. I remember like and when I was learning English, right? I remember I carried out this
Back then.
experiment. Yeah, like 10 years. When I carried out an experiment where I would constantly play one of his songs only when I'm sleeping and see like if I could learn the lyrics. And I learned the lyrics after a few days of listening to it like repeatedly, like during sleep. I would fall asleep to it and then I wake up to it. It's kind of weird. Yeah. But cool.
But you know what's scientifically proven, like what you hear, it determines your dreams, right? So they put like sleep subjects, like obviously it's a scientific experiment in rooms, and then they'll play war sounds like bombs and guns and everything. And then those people were, they measured their brain waves and they were like traumatized and they were stressed out. So I used to be like, whatever, leave the TV on kind of person. But now I'm like, oh no, like I need to create an environment that's just like very silent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have apps where like you can't when you can't sleep, right? They play white noise or
I tried those.
like,
Yeah, I
but
tried
it sounds so
those.
weird because that would be
it's weird.
so intrusive, right? When you're
Oh my
trying
God.
to
I
Yeah.
cannot. I
So
cannot.
I paid like for that calm one, right?
yeah.
You
And
did?
I paid for it. I gave it a go because you know,
Yeah.
like it's on my Insta a lot, and I thought, oh well,
Yeah.
I'll give it a go. I'm into like performance stuff, so I'm into like trying to get a better sleep, so it makes me a better, you know, perform better in the day, and resting and all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't sleep. No, I've done like I did the storytelling one where the guy's telling me the story, and I'm like, how can anyone sleep to this? Because you're trying to listen to the story, yeah. And then there's I did do the white noise one, and I did the rain one, right?
Oh, I cannot do the rain one.
And the rain one's really nice to listen to, but you can't fall asleep. Yeah,
You can.
The white noise one I fell asleep to.
You fell asleep to the white noise?
Yeah, I fell asleep to white noise.
Wow.
But then I couldn't. Yeah, but to me, like white noise, you know how sometimes you have the aircon on when you're sleeping.
That's
kind of like a noise, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you just get used to it, and you just your brain kind of just like filters it out, kind of stuff, and you fall asleep. But now, I think my best sleep comes when I put my earplugs in. So I sleep with like earplugs, and I sleep with a silk eye mask, so it's completely dark, and I get the best sleep from that. You know,
I admire people who can like fall asleep with their white noise machines, because I'm like scarred by white noise machines. Sophomore year, I lived next to this guy who had a white noise machine, and he plugged it, and there was an emergency door in between our rooms, so like I could literally walk into his room if I opened the emergency door. And so it was really loud, and it had terrible like sound acoustics. I could hear basically everything. So he plugged his white noise machine right beside the door, which I'm guessing there's like a plug right there. And for the first day I enjoyed it. The second day I just messaged him. I was like, I'm sorry, like, can you like switch rooms or just move it somewhere else, because I cannot sleep. Maybe it sounded like a white noise machine in his room, but then like in my room it sounded like a factory. So like that, I could not sleep. So I admire people who can fall asleep with like the light on, or white noise
Yeah, my
machine,
kids,
or
they
my
can
God, I
sleep with the
cannot.
light on, and I just don't get it. Yeah,
I
I can't.
cannot.
I doesn't any bit of light.
Yeah,
Oh, I can't do it.
I get
Can't
stressed
do it.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to okay, there's like people that would train by the Navy SEAL, or
Yeah.
like even people that have to like go to war, they teach you this thing where it's like you sit on a chair and you have to fall asleep in 2 minutes. And there's like a body scan kind of thing where you have to basically teach yourself to shut like everything down. So on days that I can't sleep, I'll do it. So when you're lying in bed, right, first you have to make your aircon so cold, like you can't even move, cold. And then you have to start the scan, like shut your brain down, shut everything down.
But then when you're thinking about it,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I'm shutting you down. I'm shutting you down. How do you fall asleep?
Yeah.
Because you have to think about it.
No,
And I
it's
will-
not like
yeah.
that. Like,
Yeah,
because I
you
read the
have to
sleep
feel-
book,
yeah.
and he says to do the same thing. First of
Yeah.
all, Long Long's right. Your room has to be optimum temperature for sleep is 17 degrees.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot colder than you think. And actually,
Yeah.
we know when people go for that shower in the evening and
Yeah.
how they then feel sleepy, it's not because everybody thinks, oh, because the shower relaxed me. Yeah, it's actually the temperature change from when you go out the shower when it's warm and hot to when you come out and you get that.
Your
like, going-
body uses 5 times the energy when it's wet to like keep you warm. That's why after the shower, like your body exudes so much energy. That's why you become tired.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to Alvin's like watch story. Okay, so when I spoke to Alvin, I asked him about like very memorable interviews that he did. You guys are going to be like, oh my God. Okay, so you mentioned 2 people, JCB and this woman that was working on the Pelage, right? And she was the person doing it. By the way, this kind of makes me think of John Reardon. But anyways,
Yeah.
so do you mind
Yeah.
sharing what was it about each interview that just like left such a big impression on you?
Right. JCB, of course, is a legend, right? He has so much insights and experience to share. And even I remember the first time I got to interview him, because he came with such reputation and stature, you'd be almost intimidated by him, right? His demeanor at interviews would be that he would be so passionate, and then when he tries to get his point across, he would shout, he would bang his fist on the table just to make his point, right? So if you were kind of like a noob and then you went in unprepared, right, you would be like pissing your pants, right? So he was obviously one of the most impressive figures, because just the amount of knowledge and insights that he would share that sometimes would run contrary to what you would expect. Like, you talk about trends, but then he will give you a totally different perspective of where watchmaking should be headed. Like I remember when Tag Heuer first came up with the connected watch concept, right? And the entire watch industry was like, oh no, we're gonna mechanical watch brands, they were not gonna touch smart watches, and anything that was just not of their world. But you have this guy who actually thought otherwise and gave very, very compelling arguments as to why they should be like smart watches should be part of the ecosystem as well. So that is like me interviewing one of the guys that are at the like top level of management in the watch industry, living legend. But at the same time, I also had very good experiences talking with people who were working on the ground, right? People working in the factories, because that made me realize that the watch industry isn't just about watches or about the CEOs or the marketing campaigns that they push out to people and get people to buy more watches. It's about a lot of these people who are working in their factories, doing the Pelage, like what Long Long say, day in and day out. They do it for years and years and years, and they are part of the ecosystem as well. And the reason why I'm giving that example was because, like I mentioned before, when I first started writing about watches and men's fashion, I felt like a fraud because I didn't understand the appeal, and even more so for watches because it's such an expensive hobby, right? You would think that it's only reserved for people who are wealthy, who could afford that. And me coming from a rather humble background and working in an industry, I always thought like, I kind of like rebelled against the notion of like, oh, you have so much money. Why aren't you taking this money to spend it better on other things, and you're buying these watches that could, mean like an entire year's worth of salary for someone else, and I was struggling with that for many, many years. Like I think a good, like the most formative years of my career writing about watches, I was actually rebelling against that. And then I think my experience changed when first started. I think I visited my first couple of watch factories, and then you would talk to the people, the old ladies and the old uncles who were at the brand or at the company for many, many years, like what I said, doing the pelage. And then I remember asking one of them, I think it was quite rude of me to ask also, but I really wanted to find out, like, what does it feel to be making all these beautiful things for people who are wealthy and can afford that, but for you yourself, you probably cannot afford what you're making for other people in your entire lifetime. And the answer to me was like quite simple. It's like, the lady said to me that that was her profession and her place in the profession, and she's just trying to make that thing as best and as perfect as she can, right? So that was when I started to realize that, okay, I'm also part of this ecosystem called the watch industry, where it comprises watchmakers, factory workers, CNC machine operators, marketeers, CEO, brand managers, and all of that, but what only manifests is that watch that people see, and some collectors can appreciate it for many different reasons, the history, the creativity, or the craftsmanship. But then it started to change my perspective on how, like, when I look at the watch, I would think that, okay, it's not just all of that, but also all these people who are working behind the scenes, doing the tiny, tiny little things that would be invisible, like really invisible, and people don't really think about taking home a salary that's not really a lot, but they're just making a living, right?
Yeah, I got a question, which is, and it sounds like my questions are going to sound so dickish, but I don't intend them to be like dickish. But
you can't help it. But
thanks. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Long. What I wanted to ask was, do you think it's because most of the journalists can't afford these things and can't buy these things, right? That actually the journalism on a lot of this stuff, I feel there's a huge disconnect when it's covered, right? Because the majority of journalists that we do interview, they do not buy these pieces. In fact, the more they learn about the industry, the less they want to buy these pieces. And when I read the stuff, I don't think in most of the time, especially I understand that you have to balance the advertorial, the PR side of it as well. I don't think it really captures the essence in many ways. And I say that because we look at Hodinkee, which is like the most influential platform. The people who started that did get that. And so immediately there's that connection, especially early days Hodinkee, where you felt, oh, wow, this is actually the group that I attach to. They get it. But even if you look at other publications, not many actually manage to replicate that feeling towards the reader. That's my first question. Do you think that there is that disconnect? Maybe it should be written by people that can actually afford this stuff. It isn't supposed to be mass anyway. The second thing, that lady that you asked, how do you feel about producing this stuff that personally you can't afford? And her answer was, well, I just want to do the best job that I can. To me, when I heard you say that, I thought, well, it sounds like she's just put it into a box and not thought about it, because it's not a really fully fleshed, in my opinion, a fully fleshed answer. It's like, yeah, I don't think about it. I just do this job. That's how it sounds to me. Right. So those are the two questions I'd like to ask. I've got a question about Tag Heuer as well and the smartwatch, but yeah, we could talk about that later.
Well, thanks for saying that, because you have pointed out a very important truth in the so-called industry of watch journalism. That would be like a lot of watch writers cannot afford that. We for me at least, I see it as a profession. So I always felt that from my own experience, at least in Singapore, there are two kinds of watch writers, right? The kind who would be collectors first, right? And then they would be able to review it. And then they fancy themselves writers, right? So they would start their magazines or their websites, and then they will be collectors first and writers second. And then the second group will be comprising people like us, right? Who are trying to make a living doing luxury lifestyle journalism. And because the watch industry for a while at least has become so lucrative that a lot of publications, men's fashions, women's fashion, society titles, they had to get the advertising money in. So hence writers who wouldn't otherwise be kind of being inclined to watches had to write about them because money's there.
Okay, so based on this point, right, why hasn't anyone come in to start something where it's like, let's just say we use Jacqueline, Dan, and me as an example. We're not writers, we don't have the skills, but we love watches. So we review the stuff, we write something that is mediocre, send it to say you, and you re-edit the whole thing. And everyone knows it's edited just to fix the English grammar and just fix up the tone and everything. But at least it's then the stuff that gets pushed out can connect to people. Why don't they do that?
They have done that. I mean, there's been a measure of collectors contributing to watch magazines or lifestyle magazines, and the work would be quite a lot from an editor's perspective. There's just a lot to clean up, to put into a coherent structure. Not just to be informative, but you also have to engage the reader also on a level that entertains the reader. So there are two different skill sets, right? The first one would be like your appreciation and your understanding of watches. The second, which is where I come from, would be the writing skill set, like how do you construct a story? How do you make a story engaging? And when you put it to into a website or image selection, writing captions, finding story angles, and all of those things are actually part of the training that we go through. The majority of writers that we go through. But just to answer your question, Long, yes, there have been collectors who have contributed to magazine titles, and their works would have been edited as well.
Okay. Can I ask, like, the platform that you write on, is it 100% solely about watches?
Yes, that's right.
So how are you finding what the audience actually wants? What do you think the audience actually wants at this stage from a watch platform, media platform?
So I'll just be honest, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times, watch, I would say some of the collectors would know even more about watches and brands than the journalists, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
And a lot of time, these collectors would want honest reviews. Okay, like if a brand comes out with a watch that is like a brand that's too big to fail, if the watch sucks and if the writer thinks that it sucks, he or she should be able to come out and say like, I think it sucks because of whatever reasons, right? Without fear of repercussions, but from the brand, like, I'm putting money in your publication and you're saying that I suck, and they're not gonna put money with you anymore. So taking that to its logical conclusion, that would mean that you're not gonna get very honest reviews, but that's what people want, right? So for what I do, my platform is kind of very simple in that my philosophy is to just make the universe of watches and watch collecting kind of relatable to people who might not be of a like high level yet. So for example, like, if you've been collecting watches for a long time, right? You would have known certain collections, models, complications. I could talk about chronographs with you and you would know what a chronograph is or what it does, right? But there will be people who are coming in to this world, right, who are interested in this world, who don't even know what it looks like, what the chronograph looks like, what it does, and what it means. So my function is to this is where I see myself inserting into a niche to sort of like be a bridge between the sort of newer collectors into the world of watch appreciation.
So what you're saying is you cater not for the real connoisseur who already knows a lot. You're actually looking to target the people that are on the edge. They have an interest in watches and they need to find out a little bit more before they fall into the rabbit hole, so to speak.
I would say the majority of that. But of course, I mean, this is me getting into my like work mode. Like, if you have like new releases from brands that you want to push out, obviously, then the ones who have been collecting watches a long time will want to read about them, and then you kind of have to cater to them as well.
I think Dan is frozen.
They just froze, right?
But it's hard to tell because sometimes he acts like that. So you're like, is this a connection?
I saw his face. I'm like, oh, what did I do to him, man?
Yeah, he's always like that. Like last time when we were talking about something that was very inappropriate about girls, he froze when he was smiling, and we were like, okay, you can stop smiling now. Okay, this actually kind of goes on to the next question, because when we were talking, there was one thing that kept coming up.
Yeah.
So like you kept identifying yourself primarily as a reporter, as a journalist, and like being a watch collector was secondary to you. So at which point do you actually start to label someone as a watch collector?
Good question. Yeah, is it like simply someone who just has a lot of watches, or is it a level of appreciation or understanding to you? What do you think?
I would say both. I mean, the very definition of a collector means that you would have collected a few pieces, right? So I think it's hard to put a number to like quantify like how many pieces you need to have before you are like qualified as a collector. But if I had to, maybe like, I don't know, even like if you have 5 watches, you've already collected 5 watches in the collection, right? But I can tell you what doesn't make a collector. Having a lot of watches doesn't make you it doesn't make you a collector. Having very close-minded views about what a good watch, close inverted commas, should be, it doesn't make you a collector. Having the most expensive watches doesn't make you a collector. You could collect like Swatch watches and that you would be a collector. You could collect Casio watches because that would be your thing, and you would be a watch collector as well in my books. So I mean, there are like conversations which I've had with like collectors who are in watch communities, and oftentimes the people who founded these watch clubs, they would be kind of like approaching it in the kind of right way, you know, like what we talked about, like passion, having a genuine interest. It doesn't matter whether you have like one watch or none, but if you like the watch, if you like watches, you can come into our club. And then they would tell me about collectors who will come in and, you know, be dismissive of, oh, you don't have minute repeaters in your collection. How can you call yourself a collector if you don't have minute repeaters in your collection? Like stuff like that, and that would kind of like, you know, discount sort of like that wouldn't make them collectors in my books. Yeah.
And how often do you have you met individuals like this in group gatherings who are a little bit more dismissive or very close-minded about what they think is a good watch?
In my experience, actually, the ones that I've kind of interacted with in Singapore, actually not that many, but just online, you know, sometimes you deal with people who have their opinion on what makes, no, it's not even a good watch or a bad watch, like what makes a real watch. You know, there was this guy, I would just like give you an example. He would sort of have a online conversation with me about like, oh, you can't say that this is a real watch because it doesn't have an in-house movement. And then you're like, like, okay, do I want to like engage this guy? You know, it got to the point where, you know, after a few exchanges, I was like, you know, forget it.
No
point.
Like,
you know, what you like is right, and what you think is like, okay, you know, good luck on your watch appreciation journey, or you know, you are entitled to your own opinion, of course, and you know, and then you just leave the conversation there.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of people that actually reach out to you and they ask you opinions on like what to get and so on?
Yeah, I mean, all the time, especially socially, when you're like with amongst friends, you know, and I wouldn't, you know, I mean, they would like ask me about like certain brands, what is good to buy, and so on and so forth, and so back to what Daniel was saying, like, you know, me being a reporter and not really so much a watch collector. So the disconnect is that, okay, you guys love watches and you guys see watches as a hobby, like something that you escape into away from your real lives. You know, your real lives, you have like your work and all that. So watches are something that you get into to escape from all of that. So for what I do, I write about watches, right? And that's my full-time job. And so on my downtime, you know, you don't really want to think so much about watches or write about them. But then people will come out to you and, hey, you know, what do you think about this or that, you know? And then you would have to engage. So I don't know, maybe that gives you a bit of a sense of like, you know, the difference between,
it just makes me sound even more dickish,
Right.
Yeah, with my question. Well, you know, I just like to ask like some of the questions that, you know, just come in my head, right? And also, you know, what you said about how you actually, every time you talk about content, you're actually conscious about the person that pays the bills, right? This, like, for example, this podcast isn't paid by brands. So we've actually had messages from the cookie department doesn't count. But we've had messages from collectors that actually appreciate the fact that we can talk about stuff. But however, we are still respectful for the brands. I will say that, because just because we don't like it doesn't mean nobody else likes it. Just on that level. But they actually say, oh, you know, it's great that you're not actually financed by the brands. So it's actually more real. They actually feel it. That's why I wanted to highlight it, because I do think it's a relevant topic. But there was another
But Dan, you know how you broke off for a little bit, and during the time Lung asked the question to Alvin, like, what does he think is a real like watch collector? And I think it's a good time for us to go around and maybe like share what we each think, because I'm curious to know what you and Lung both think about like what makes a real collector, because it's so saturated simply.
Yeah, I think it's such a vague term. And I think
Yeah.
maybe at the beginning, when I was not so versed into the watch collecting community, I would have said I am a watch collector. But, you know, the more I think about it, maybe I'm actually a watch enthusiast, because I just know so many people around me that I would say are on a different level of watch collecting. You know, whether it's the size of the collection, the knowledge of what they're buying, the refinement in that collection. I'm not there. And I don't know if I'll ever be there. But I do have an interest in watches, where I'll read about it. I loved about reading about the history of it, the brand history, the development of certain collections, how the final product ties into, you know, my lifestyle, how I wear it. I'm interested in all of that. But when you're talking about collecting, surely you're talking about aggregation of pieces, right? And when it
scholarship.
comes to that, yeah, there's just so many collectors that have everything under the sun. But then I will say there's collectors that have everything under the sun. And I think I've had a discussion with Jacqueline on this, whereby I wouldn't think they're collectors, because just buying because you can buy doesn't kind of make me think that you're collecting, you're hoarding. I feel the word collecting, you do need some kind of discernment and refinement in it. And I, for myself, I would call myself a watch enthusiast. I do cringe a little bit if people say you're a watch collector. I feel it's so disrespectful to the people that I know that I regard as watch collectors. So I think I'm just a watch enthusiast. Yeah. I would say Jacqueline's a proper watch collector. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't call myself a watch collector, because, well, I guess I'll say it first, and I'm curious what Long has to say. But I have been thinking about it since, you know, last year and whatever, when I started, because I absolutely agree. I think, like, when you have everything, it kind of like means you have nothing, because there's no like distinction. Or, I mean, I guess it depends. I think, first of all, what makes a collector, I think the most important quality is that you have to be self-knowing. Like, you have to understand what it is that you look for and what it is that you want. It could be simply like aesthetic based, or it could be something deeper. You know, when we like things, we are often influenced by our environment, so often like tells us a little bit about ourselves, the things that we like. So I think knowing yourself is very important, and being discerning. I think the second one is like being more patient and reflective, and like learning through the process, which I think happens with time and experience. But then, most important of all, from my experience, right, looking around, people who I admire and are, you know, collectors in my mind, I think the most important part is this idea of like being able to share knowledge. I think you know, but there's a distinction. There are people who are private about their collections because they just want to be, and I perfectly respect that. You know, people are more private individuals and they want to keep it to themselves. But there's a difference between like being private with your collection versus being private with like your knowledge. I think as a lone wolf collector, and you kind of are just like doing it and not influencing other people around you, or passing on knowledge, I think that isn't what I would think is a true collector. I think a true collector would be someone who's willing to share what they've accumulated throughout the years. And then I guess in hand to that, a collector has to be just have somewhat of an high EQ. And
okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, right, in order to learn and acquire knowledge, and even just acquire pieces, right, sometimes to get those really obscure and rarely seen pieces, sure, you need wealth on one hand, but also like you need to know people who actually have these watches, and then in a sense like know them so well that they give you the first right of what's it like first right
Like
of
you get to purchase it first.
reject
Yeah.
yeah exactly.
Refusal.
Yeah, so what makes it that they give it to you compared to like other people? And it doesn't even have to be like that. It could be building a relationship with your dealer or with your auction house, so much so that like if your dealer gets something nice and they know you so well already and they know that that's exactly like the missing piece in your collection, they offer it to you. They know you to offer it to you. So I think it's such a fine line, and like what Dan said, it's so vague. But again, like I don't think I'm a collector. I think I'm an enthusiast. I'm nowhere near the level of people like John Goldberger or Jason Singer or so. And Dan, like you might say, oh, because of your age, and I think I agree, like it takes time, it takes experience. So I mean,
going through a transition anyway, aren't you? Because I spoke to you last week and we had this very topic, we were talking about this very topic, and how you feel about the watches now.
It has
changed.
Very
different.
Yeah,
it's changed, right?
Even like a year ago. I mean, I remember when we first met, right? Like the three of us and Alex and Chester. I mean, like privately, you guys were telling me, oh, you're so lucky because everything's like so new to you and you're trying to look at many things. But I think after 1 year, I'm also a little bit numb because of just the pure like what I've seen, and I think I know more about myself now to know what I appreciate. And it kind of is, I mean, a double-edged sword. I know more about what I want, but at the same time I'm not excited about 100% like everything that's out there, whereas I was used to like being like that. So
I think patience is really important. Like,
yeah,
there's a point where you just feel like you have to have something, right? And actually, if you can control that and over the long term be patient in acquiring that piece, it's slightly different, right? Like just completely just going out to buy it because you can, or
well, it's like the instant gratification
anyway, right?
Yeah
because like it's kind of like, doesn't it annoy you a little bit where you obtain a piece and then 2 months down the line you don't feel the same way about the piece and you think, oh god, like, okay, I need to get, like, I don't really like holding on to stuff that I don't like.
Yeah,
I don't like to hold on to stuff that I don't wear.
Yeah.
So when I see it still there, it's like, oh, it needs to go. And if that time frame from when I purchased it to when I let it go is short, I know I did.
Well, I feel like I didn't get my. Yeah, I mean, I would feel like I didn't get my money's worth. Like I didn't make anything with this. I just simply bought it, and then it doesn't mean much to it to me. So I would appreciate. I would prefer hanging on to something and then like actually wearing it. But then sometimes you just have those pieces that you buy and you just never wear, and you like it because of what it is, but because you don't wear it, it's not the same. So I think being patient in acquisition, and that kind of links back to like just, I don't know, like knowing what you really want and not being so hot-headed is important.
The thing is, Jacqueline, you've actually gone through FVJ. You actually touched Independence. You've Patek.
I haven't touched Independence.
Well, you will be soon, right?
Oh, not yet.
So yeah, they're coming on the way. But you're at that point where you must be scratching your head because you've sampled a lot of the food, so to speak, right?
Yeah. So I'm at the refining stage, where I'm trying to sell pieces that I don't wear anymore, and it's so hard because it's like you have some pieces that you don't wear And I mean, I have them because of the condition. I'm simply scared because of how old they are. I mean, I have watches that are like almost 100 years old that I just don't wear because out of fear. But I really like looking at them. But should I hold on to them, or shouldn't I? So it's like going back and forth and constant debating. But again, it's a learning process. But Long Long, like for you, you don't sell what you buy. So like for you, do you just like try to wear everything, or do you also have like pieces that you no longer wear as much? And how has that initial feeling changed for you for those pieces?
But before Long Long answers, like, and I don't want to speak for Long Long though, but I think the audience should know, and I think but you might have forgotten. This almost is the second coming of Long Long in terms of a watch collection, because she was collecting watches way earlier. She went through Daytona, she went through
Richard
the MB&S, and then there was like this hiatus, right?
Yeah.
And then she went back into it, but by then her mindset had changed.
I mean,
right? It's almost like she
Long
developed
Long's...
watch collecting philosophy
in
that period where she wasn't buying, right?
Yeah.
So
well,
anyway, that's what
for those who are curious, you guys can go back to listen to Long's episode. She makes a really good analogy with like cleaning out her house and then deciding which furniture to put in first with thought. I think that's like very accurate.
It's like, if I use that analogy now, the house is like a mess again.
Yeah.
But you know what I thought about recently? So I'm on the same point. Like, I think the same as what Dan said, which is I always cringe like when people say collector, because I'm like, it's so insulting to the real ones, to be put in that same category.
Yeah.
Especially when the articles come out, right? They say watch collector. Yeah, it's really
It's so like, there must be another word for this. But there's a few things I realized from doing the interviews, right? So one is I realized like watch collecting is the only hobby that people actually label. So you can be like, have a lot of shoes, have a lot of bags and whatever. No one's going to be like, oh, you're a shoe collector or a watch collector. And a watch collector is like, one day someone's like, hey, you're a watch collector.
And car collector.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just like, that's ridiculous. But then I realized the biggest difference is it has to be a conscious choice to edit, right? So you have to, for example, with any collector, let's say with shoes, shoes is a good example because I buy a lot of shoes, right? So if I just buy whatever I need because I'm like, oh shit, I don't have this color, that doesn't make me a collector. That just means that you're just very bad with your fashion choices. So you weren't thinking it through when you bought that first pair. But if you actively say, okay, this style, I need it in every color, every skin, let's say, then you are actively doing something. So with watch collecting, the thing I realized recently, because when I look back at the interviews I did maybe 2 years ago, I keep using the same analogy, which is with watches, it's like a snapshot of a particular time in my life. And this is why I don't want to sell it, because I want to be able to like open my watch box one day and be like, okay, this is 2000, whatever. I was feeling this and whatever. But now I realize, no, you're just making excuses because one, you just don't want to let the pieces go. So I too will look at something and think, is this working towards my ultimate 6 pieces in the end? If it's not, like, why do I hold on to it? So my end goal is really 6 to 8 pieces. And I think the only good thing that I have done this time around compared to like at least 10 years ago, right, is that and it's kind of like you as well, like we kind of avoided Patek for a long time. Okay, maybe for you didn't think you were like worthy enough of Patek, right?
Yeah, no.
But for me, it was like, one, it's like, you're a joke. You wearing the Patek, it's going to make the brand look bad. That's one. But two, I was so sure, right, that once you start, and especially when you read the book, you can't stop. So the best thing I did was delay it.
Yeah.
So, like I would say in the coming 3 to 5 years, my goal is to really edit like mad and then just go between Independence and Patek.
Yeah.
Yes, and then lower it to 6 pieces. Yeah. So I
We
would
had
say
that
I'm
same
definitely not a
conversation.
collector.
Same,
We had
Yeah.
that same
same.
conversation
But then,
with Jacqueline like last week, and I actually went through the 6 pieces.
it's
Yeah.
perfect.
I actually
It's
went through
perfect.
the 6 pieces after everything I've learned, and obviously you need the watches to apply to your lifestyle. I picked like, so I've got the Date Just that was handed down to me. That's never going. I've got the
Reverso.
Seiko. Yeah, I've got the Seiko Pogue, which I think is, you know, where you want to wear a watch which isn't that flashy, but you still want to wear a watch, and you want to have a watch that has a very rich history from a very successful brand. I thought, yeah, that's the watch to wear, right? It's like your kind of low-key watch. Then the Reverso, I just think as a daily, it's so good, man. So good. That's going there. Then I've got I want to get the AP double balance.
Oh yeah.
Right. So that's, for me, is the RM. So when you need to go out and you need to flash, you need to show people, you need to, even casually, I think that watch looks great. I wouldn't wear it formally, but it looks really good. Like, and especially with the open work. Love it. Then the chronograph Langer, Ladergraph. Then the Patek World Time. And then Perpetual Chrono Patek.
Okay.
That's kind of like the collection I'd be looking
28
at.
Ti.
Yeah,
28 Ti, because of the affiliation I have with you.
So how do you beat that? But then my question becomes, right? Like, what do you do after?
We'll get there first. Let's get there first.
So and then do you start refining? Yeah, I think you would start refining because you keep editing, right? Like you learn as you go.
Yeah, I would definitely keep editing.
The editing should be less.
The editing will be less. Let's say
you're making a movie. You make a movie, right? You're doing a lot of editing at the beginning, and then you're making little touches at the end, right?
Yeah. What about well, Long, answer your dream collection question, and then we'll go to Alvin.
No, I'm so sure. Okay, because my dream collection, and it's like, this is the only thing that's consistent with me, is that I will be very inappropriate in all the circumstances, even how I dress, right? So I know the watch doesn't need to be practical. So if you say low key, I'll be like, yeah, I'll get the most epic Calatrava for daily. Like, it doesn't need to make any sense. I'll get a rainbow Daytona for the supermarket. It doesn't have to make sense for me.
Yeah.
But it just has to be the most epic collection.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, I need to talk about this. Because in the beginning of the podcast, I had said that I was really curious how different Melissa and Alvin's questions were going to be. Answers were going to be. And then I realized the only similarity so far was that when we interviewed Melissa said there was a point in her career where she didn't wear watches because people made some comments about like, that's not a real watch, that kind of thing. And Alvin, you did the same. So you didn't wear watches for a while and then you said that at one point, your boss had gifted you a Fortis Auto 7750 autograph, right? And on this podcast, we always talk about how your watches are kind of like an extension of you. So it's how people read you, how you want to like portray yourself to the world, right? So did you ever look at the watch and think, oh, this is what my boss thinks about me? And did you ever ask him, like, why did you gift me this watch? Yeah, what does it say about me?
I'll tell you why, right? The Fortis was I think I was on a year and a half into my first into the job, writing about watches, and this ex-boss of mine, I think he's a pioneer in the Singapore watch publishing landscape. He basically started World of Watches, that was kind of the first of its kind. So the magazine, you could write about anything from Swatches to Patek, all the brands would come in and advertise with them. So anyway, I was there for a year and a half, and I think I was due my year-end bonus, right? And instead of the year-end bonus, I got a watch, which I think was kind of a bartered, right? Sometimes they put in an ad with you and they give you a watch. And when I got the watch, I was really quite grateful to him. Until much later, then I realized that, I should have gotten the bonus money instead. But anyway, that watch was a chronograph, black PVD coated, one of the first few PVD coated watches. And writing about watches and not having a nice watch to wear to an event, you always kind of feel not too good, or feel a bit small when you're amongst not journalists really, but collectors, and then you feel like you're judged. I know it's wrong to feel that way, but you do. And when I had that watch, I would wear it all the time because that was the only thing, and it was mechanical. It's chronograph, and I found out Valdu 775 was very, very, very decent chronograph movement, and I would wear it. And then people would think that it was an IWC Top Gun, right? I wore it for so many years, and I still wear it as a reminder. Like, sometimes I will post real shot and this is my first workhorse, and that has stuck with me. So just now listening to you guys talk about like collecting, and editing your collection to a sizable or manageable few pieces that will express what your desires would be. Let me give you a perspective from a journalist who can't really afford all the watches that you guys are talking about, right? So I have that watch. That's my first watch that would always be in with me, all right, in my so-called collection. Another one would be a Rolex 6694 steel watch, three-hand. My mom bought that for my dad. They were not rich. I think it was the first wedding anniversary gift, steel Rolex. And I think that cost about like $300 back in the day, like in the 70s and 80s. And then I was cleaning my mom's house for Chinese New Year, during the spring cleaning. Open up the boxes, and then I say, hey, what's this thing you have over there? And it's, this is a gift I bought for your dad like a couple of years ago. And my granddad would take the watch and bring it to the Rolex service center to service it annually, but hasn't done so for a long time because he's passed away. And so I took out that watch, and then I wound it, and then it immediately started ticking again, like after like 5 years of no servicing. I'm like, wow, okay, Rolexes are, really,
sturdy.
really, that's the movements are really, really solid. And she was like, yeah, you want, you can have it. So there's like, a memory that I'll keep with me. Probably another one would be the GMT Masters 2 I bought like after 10 years of working in the watch industry. I knew I wanted to get a GMT watch, and that was the one I got. And then like small independent, because I really envied the independent spirit, so I got something from NHC, Vincent Calabresi, because he was the OG who started the ACHI anyway. So and all these watches, right, I'm like obviously less than 10 grand Singapore dollars, right? And all this, I wouldn't have to edit them, because if I edited them, I would have none left. But all these pieces meant in some way as a connection to a very specific memory, because I don't have that abundance of funds to buy a lot and then size them down later. So my question to you guys would be, how does your philosophy on watch collecting and buying and editing these watches, right? How is it a reflection of how you guys approach life in general? Because you guys obviously come from a different place where you could get all these precious things, right? But at the same time, what does this preciousness mean to you in terms of sizing it down to a watch collection?
No, thank you for asking that question, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I like how you phrased that. Like, I can go first. It's funny because this hobby is like very heavily steeped in money, and yet it's the thing that I care about least. So well, the thing that I think people that listen to the podcast, and especially the two girls with me now, they know that I actually value the relationships that I form over like my years, and even through watches. So a lot of my journey now, I started Shanghai Watch Gang because I wanted to meet more people like me, and I felt quite lonely, and I didn't have that access. Now I have that access, and actually now I want to refine because it's not hard for me to meet other collectors anymore. In fact, I've made great friendships through watches that I want to keep. And I mentioned this in the last podcast, meeting more people may just detract more time from the people that I really care about. If you heard what I said about the editing my collection, we talked about the 28 Ti, a 5004 would probably make it in there. The certain pieces, the date just that I mentioned, they all actually are linked with people that are important to me. Yeah, because I think that's actually more valuable, right? If I can link it to a person, it will always be more valuable to me. So I don't think I would get rid of those pieces, even if, let's say, that friendship fell through. It's a memory, and that's really, really important to me personally. You could buy, as you're aware, you're a journalist, you could buy so many nice watches out there, right? But and for whatever reason, technical reason, aesthetic reason, you would, even on those reasons alone, you'd be spoiled for choice. But if you can tie it in with personal memory, like what you do, Alvin, then you're really going to narrow it down, right, to a very, very select few that tick everything. I think it's very gracious to say, that we can buy all this stuff, but in my mind, I cannot buy everything. And in that respect, I do have to actively focus on budget and what I actually really want and refine it down to a manageable collection. So that's my answer. I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah, who's next?
Okay, I'll go. You go. But my answer might not even answer his question. But I think because if you look at my life, like how I am outside of watches, I'm very logical, even when it comes to cutting people out, even, or like who I want around me, and just how I live my life, and from work to social to everything. I'm super logical. So when I look at watches, it has to be illogical. Like I can be illogical. It allows me to just be irrational, illogical, excessive even, right? And not be apologetic about it. And then the other thing I can see anyways, when I look at myself and how I portray myself, especially online, I realize that the thing that's very obvious for me is that I am all those things, flashy, excessive, all this, but I don't care to explain this to anyone. I will only explain it to people that I care about. So I don't care how the world sees me and reads me, because I understand myself. Like I am a very logical person. So outside of watches, I do think I'm very good with money, actually, or I do think I'm very good at setting boundaries and being very strict with my work. Yeah. So watches for me is a place for me to just escape and be illogical. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to be cut out in the next round.
Yeah, you should be on your
my card is marked. Yeah, my card is marked, right?
Already moved to general.
Yeah.
You are in general tab right now.
Yeah, before expunge.
Yeah.
I think for me, collecting, again, we're going back to that word, is less so about okay, so I think there are stages, and I think I haven't yet to reach the stage of either Long or Dan yet, simply because like I just don't know that many people. I haven't been in this long enough. So for me, the personal side really becomes like, it's like a curiosity filler. I like personally am a very curious person, and I can be like a little hot-headed sometimes, and I can rush into things. I think Dan and I were talking, like, wouldn't you say so? Like, I think I'm either like really logical or really illogical, and emotional. So for me, so far, watches have been, I love it. I love reading and researching about these things. I think it comes from like what I've been doing for like the past couple of years. Like I've been doing research stuff on the side. But also like when I'm curious about something and I want to gets into a little bit of like a touchy subject because I wouldn't say like I need to own certain things in order to feel good. Like I'm not big on ownership, but I still would like to experience it. And that's why I've been through many pieces like over the past a year and a half, almost 2 years. But now I think I've reached to a point where it's kind of changed for me. Like we said earlier, I don't get excited that often anymore. But when I do, it's still a very strong and sharp feeling. So I think I'm maturing and know more about what I value and appreciate. So it used to be, oh, I just want to see everything and touch and hold and experience. But now it's like I feel very confident in my skin and in my judgment. I know where I'm going, but at the same time, like a general direction. But at the same time, I can be still, very emotional or irrational with my decisions and still feel like in the moment with my decisions. I don't know if that makes sense, but it used to be like I have to make a decision and then live by it, but then there's not much reasoning behind it. It's just I'm simply curious. But now there's more of a direction and purpose to how I view watches. Yeah.
For me, for many years now, for quite a few years now, it's been less about the watches. When I first started, I really wanted to see everything under the sun. Like,
yeah,
I just want to see this piece, see that piece, and everything. The more you see, the less pieces there are because they're not making it. You don't want to see all the rubbish as well.
yeah.
And it just became about the people, and
yeah.
that's been like that for me for quite a few years now. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
agree with
Right.
Long Long as well. Like, when I was Shanghai Watch going, with the amount of people that never met me but have an idea about me and have an impression of me and have a prejudgment of me of what I'm like and what my lifestyle is like. It's so many people, especially when you meet them and you can tell that they think certain thing about you. That again, I stopped caring about that as well. Yeah.
Okay, so Alvin, we usually do a quick fire round, but before we do the quick fire, because you're so creative and you write, you play music and you create music as well, I just want to know, where do you find your inspiration from? Because at one point in this podcast, you said you wrote this poem about the woman with the fake LV bag. So like, where else do you find your inspiration from?
It could be anywhere, right? It could be, I mean, the conversation that we just had. It's more a sense of just being open to and sensitive to the environment around you. I think you have to be open to receive, because you can't really find inspiration. Inspiration has to be you have to be ready for inspiration, right? Be prepared so that you can receive inspiration when it happens to you. So, for example, you could be working on a song for, I don't know, like months, and nothing ever happens. But one day it all clicks. But at another time, you could be just like hearing something, and then you decide to write your version of that song, and it happens in like half an hour. So yeah, to answer your question, it's just to be open and to be sensitive about to the environment as well as the people, to feel connected. I would say.
Okay. Before we go into the quick fire, I actually suddenly thought about something.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned at one point that your friends ask you about watches and opinions on watches, whatever. Do people go to you and ask you to help them get a piece?
All the time. All the time. And then obviously, I used to be very, very bothered by it. Like, like I really cannot, and you would hear in the past of like, because it used to be that you would be able to get a media discount, right?
Oh, wow.
Right? I don't think that happens anymore. And then if you were to be dishonest about it, you could get the media discount and then sell it for a profit, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't ever do that. And right now, just tell them that, I just write about watches. I don't sell them. So, yeah.
And then they're like, no, Alvin, I'm asking you to go to
the store and call someone, from Rolex and,
It's like, no, I don't have a phone.
I wanted to ask Alvin, like, you asked us that question about editing and stuff.
Yeah.
But we gave our feedback and then bouncing it back to you. What were your thoughts on the answers we gave? Was it consistent to how you perceived it, or?
I think so, because all the answers you gave were like you didn't go into talking about no, not that. But you didn't talk about the watches per se. Oh, it was only because of that piece that is like, I want to have like that particular watch for whatever reason in the horological context, right?
Yeah, because it's got a vertical clutch.
But it's like, Jacqueline's talking about her being curious. Lang Lang was talking about, how she's like being illogical, and watch is a place to get into where she can be herself in a manner, and for you would be like, you will connect a piece with people. So to me, that's great to hear, because that's at the heart of what I do also. Because when I write about watches, of course I'm trying to, sell a watch because someone paid me to pay the magazine and advertise. That is my job. But the motivation behind that would be, I have to remind myself that it's also about people who are actually making it. The people who are making the watch, and as much as I myself am in this industry where I'm actually writing about these beautiful things that you guys can buy. So it's about people, and to that I would add that so many friendships I've made, right, with fellow journalists, brand people, collectors. I mean, ultimately you become friends, right, and become people, and you have these shared memories only because there is this thing that exists,
Yeah.
All right,
similar.
let's do the quick fire round. So just really short answers to very quick questions as well. Okay, first one. Band we should all be checking out, or it could be a singer. A band. Yeah. You can plug yourself.
Club. Of course I gotta plug myself. What do you think? Yeah.
So how like Alvin says that he'll get inspired by like different things. It could be this conversation. We're gonna go to Tai Chi Music Club next week, and there's gonna be a poem about 3 like idiots.
Massage parlors.
Yeah.
Oh
no. Okay, favorite Singaporean dish.
Chicken rice. I'm Hainanese, so that's my heritage right there.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, guys, in Singapore there's a McDonald's Hainanese burger right now. Just putting it out there.
There's everything. Singapore has everything.
Yeah, it does.
But wait, Alvin, do you add cucumber slices on your chicken rice or no?
That's what monsters do.
It's up to them, man. If they serve it with cucumber, I'll eat it with cucumber.
Oh, really?
No,
because I've only eaten it with cucumber slices, like the food court that I go to, and it wasn't until like a while back, like after that, people started telling me like you should only just eat the chicken and rice. Like they shouldn't even serve you the cucumber. And I got really confused. I thought it was like
my diet is good, right?
Well, I don't know, because they told me like it's not very like it's not authentic enough.
I think
the way that you ate it. So I was really confused.
Most of the time they serve it with cucumber slices.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then like someone told me that you're not supposed, like it's not authentic with the cucumber. So I got really confused.
Who told you that? Was it an American?
No, it's Singaporean. I've started to hold a grudge. Like, yeah, okay, just curious. Okay, next.
I'm laughing, right? Last week, a couple of days ago, Long messaged me. She's like going on this bike ride, saying, "Oh, you know, next time you come to Singapore, we should go on a bike ride." Yeah, then like literally like 20 minutes later, she goes, "I reached my destination." Yeah, and it's a McDonald's frozen yogurt stand. You know?
Typical.
Yeah. Okay, favorite watch brand.
Rolex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good choice.
Do you prefer digital print or physical print?
Physical print.
Okay. Favorite watch complication.
Wow.
Or time only.
Or time only?
Yeah.
I would say maybe a minor complication, just a day date.
Okay.
Okay. Wasn't expecting that.
Classy.
For some reason, I was expecting you to say Rattrapante or something. You know?
Yeah,
I was expecting like chronograph or something.
I'm a very practical kind of
flying Tobion.
6002.
Yeah. Morning or a night person?
Morning, definitely. Yeah, I wake up early and I get.
You gave me that feeling. You gave me that feeling.
Kiss everybody off in the office.
Wait, why did he give you that feeling?
Because I'm old.
No, the time that we started recording and the enthusiasm you had straight away, I thought,
wow, the contrast with Lang Lang. The first word she spoke, I'm so sleepy.
The first message I received from Lang Lang today, is, "Fuck, I'm so sleepy." Durian I ate yesterday just killed me. That is so representative of Lang Lang in so many ways.
Yeah.
Okay, work from home or work in the office?
I'm actually okay with either though.
Okay.
But I choose? No, right?
No, either is fine.
Yeah, either is fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Geneva or Dubai?
Geneva. Geneva.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same.
Okay. Country you want to travel to most after COVID?
I would say Japan.
Oh, sounds like there's a major influx of everyone.
Same.
Just check into ryokan and not just like
I was
Did you guys listen to Massa's interview? I was listening to Massa's interview recently because it was just the one we read.
Yeah.
We were saying,
and we were like, we have to go. Like, we're just dying to meet you, and you have to bring us to all these places. Basically, like enslave Massa.
Yeah, we need to go for that banana milkshake for the Daytona Marathon.
Yeah.
Last question. One thing you would change about the world of watch journalism?
Nice.
Good question.
I get paid more.
Of course, that would be nice, but I would say that the brands, would be would take a broader view on watch journalism being so transactional. I pay you, you have to write something good about me. As opposed to I'm paying you because this is a platform that that needs to be supported. So, of course, journalists have to be mindful of what butters the bread, but at the same time, and also at the same time, be tactful in giving criticisms or constructive criticism. But brands should be also open enough to realize that that would be a good and not a bad thing.
Okay.
I personally think that will take a while, because I think
I don't think it'll ever happen though.
Yeah, if it is going to happen.
I mean, why would a brand pay you money and then you say, oh, you know, your new doll color is, you know,
well,
it's doll.
You know,
whatever. You know,
Ariel Adams was talking to me, and we were talking about this topic, and he was saying that, you know, right now it seems that the brands want to take back control a lot of, well, they feel like they don't really need a lot of the media for a start,
course,
and
yes,
that they can then actually do a lot of the stuff themselves. But Ariel's point of view is that actually they don't realize that the media serves a different purpose, and which they are much more equipped at doing than the brands, such as bringing new people in to watches, and just portraying it in a way that the brands can't do. But he said that'll take a few years before that will actually happen.
Do you think that, or do you see a time coming where the media's role is diminished, and in its place would be like people like you guys, where, you know, let's say if you were doing something like that and you were doing it for a commercial reason, right? And brands were paying you to do podcasts and give opinions, then, you know, as collectors, then you have a more weight to what you're saying as opposed to traditional media.
Well, I actually think it's died. It went away faster than I expected. Don't you think so? I actually thought that it was okay, let's say about 2017, 18. Oh, even okay, if you want to count people niche, like earlier, right? It picked up super fast, and then suddenly, like now, anyways, the ones that I know, right? I'm already like, okay, I can see right through it already. Because no matter what, you are paid. No matter what. I can tell you, if the day that a brand can pay me, right? Even if it's a brand I love and I actually think the product is great, I will already know that I will never be neutral again. So I have to already make a conscious choice. From now on, I'm not neutral. And the only people that I can talk to who I can give a neutral opinion are people around me off the record. So I will never do it. It can be the best brand. I mean, imagine it was Paddock. You're not neutral anymore. Even if an AD gives you, even if you think, let's say Paddock decides to give me, Jack and Dan, any piece we want. They don't pay us. We still got to pay the brand. I mean, pay for the watch, but we get any piece. You're already not neutral. So I don't buy it, but I don't know if the whole market would.
But isn't that how they win people over though?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can actually say, like, let's say Horror Loop. Yeah. Because I think right now, for me, that's super transparent. And this is not me for all the Horror Loop fanboys dishing shit on him. Yeah. But I mean, how can you love so many Royal Oaks, right? Like, and every single one be so amazing. And every perpetual, we make fun of people that get excited because it's a change of color. And for the most part, it is a change of color, right? Same movement, same case, same design. And he gets the pieces ahead of everybody else, right? And a lot of those pieces trade for above premium, right? Way above premium.
Yeah, like 200, like 300. Yeah,
2x, 3x. Yeah, it's totally in his interest to do it. I mean, potentially, if you put me in a position, I would do the same thing. I get the piece. I get to build my Instagram account up. But, you know, you're not neutral. You're not going to say anything bad about that brand. I can't believe for one moment that he really liked the Black Panther, right? Or any piece like that. And, you know, I think there's people that do like the Black Panther, and fair play to them. It's not a piece that I personally like. And I think I can say that. And if I'm not allowed to even say that, and the brands already to control the narrative that comes straight from them, and they use the collectors to further control the narrative, then we're really living in a shitty place.
Yeah.
where the brands, no, I'm not going to give it to you until you say what I want you to say. Like, okay, do you know what? Actually, I value my freedom of speech. Like, don't give it to me then. I'll just go buy something else.
But yeah, but you guys are talking about motivations, right? Because I mean, perhaps you guys come from a place that's a bit more pure than some other people. But you know, not everybody would think the way you guys think and would take that money and would you know, promote it through their channels or on their platform, right?
Okay, you know,
And
because
when-
watches are expensive, right? Let's put it into something that everyone can understand, like food. You know, Singapore has a huge food blogging scene since we were kids, since you were young, I was young, whatever, right? Ages like at least 20 years, right? Okay, 15 years. Even with food bloggers, I'm like, I don't believe you. Like
you mean like, do they actually like the food?
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
don't
No,
buy it.
they would ask for free food, you know. So
Yeah,
from
I don't buy
restaurants, so
it.
that I can
Yeah.
write about
Well, you know
them.
what I don't buy? I don't buy those like cooking videos.
What do you mean? Which cooking videos?
Like on YouTube, the people who teach you how to make stuff. Because you don't know what it tastes like. It just looks good. You know, that's what I don't like. And I've started to develop some trust issues. Because you see people like adding actual stuff in food commercials to make it extra shiny or extra foamy, right?
Yeah.
But you can never tell what it is. So for people in like those cooking videos or cooking tutorials or like, so for those who are listening, I'm referring to like, you know, internet like celebrities in China who, you know, like Li Ziqi, like these really popular people who dress up as like village girls and goes back to their like villages to make like traditional food. And it's shot so beautifully, like so scenic and everything, but you're never going to taste this stuff. It just looks good. So, I mean, I wish that, you know, they're actually all very good. And, you know, she often ends the videos with her grandparents around the table and her feeding them food. And it's all very heartwarming and touching. But you don't know what it actually tastes like. So, like so like to what extent is real, to what extent is what you read is real or what you see online is real.
You know, Vacheron is pushing, I mean, Vacheron has suddenly, I mean, one, they have released a lot of great stuff, right?
Yeah.
But they're also heavily marketing now. And I had
vintage
dinner with
stuff too.
Yeah, the vintage stuff too.
Heritage stuff.
And then I had dinner with the manager in Singapore, and he showed me some of the fashion bloggers in Singapore, girls, okay? And I said, oh, I'm not a good audience because I don't follow them. So I don't know who they are, right? But he's like, no, just look at the ad. I just want to see if it sells. And I was like, okay, one, it's unfair because the watches aren't my style anyways, the female ones, right? But I said, wait, how does it actually translate into sales? I'm shocked. They don't try and hide that. He says not a lot. But the thing is, he says they don't mind. It's not shot in a way that they're trying to hide that it's a product placement. So she wears the watch, there's a flat lay, it's really nicely done. I mean, I don't even think I could ever recreate a photo like that. It's so well shot, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just really surprised because I always think to myself, I'm not in marketing. They must know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
But I cannot see how that can translate into sales and how this is okay.
Not really, though.
Why
I think
don't
the watch brands have been notoriously slow in adopting marketing trends and tools, and you know, whatever they're doing now might be applicable to an FMCG product, but with watches is entirely different, or at least that's what I think.
I don't know why.
I would agree with Long Long. You know, in terms of opinion online, approach with an open mind, but just to see the shot with the watch, like you'll see the product there, so you visually see straight away, right? And the more you see of a product, maybe you're a bit more familiar with it. The fact you see it, you might like it. Just on that simple way, maybe the fashion bloggers, but. We were talking about this, I think, on the last podcast. how we use Instagram now. I just use it for the hashtags to look for a certain piece.
Same.
Yeah, I'm not following like and my friends.
Yeah.
I literally my Instagram activity is I don't even like people's pictures. Like they're either my very close friends. I give about like 10 likes a week, if that. And then the rest of it is looking at stories from my friends and seeing what they're up to. And then if I'm searching for a particular piece because I need a good shot, I want to see what it looks like, then I'll use the hashtags. That's it. I don't even know who's ever trending or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay, let's say you, me, and Jacqueline are not a good gauge of the general public, right? But if you think about the general public, they are going to go online and subconsciously look at these photos and be like, what is this person wearing? But the next question is, they find the watch. Can they buy it? They can't buy it. Not available. Or how do you hire people in marketing who fall into that age group who are already using the Instagram on a daily basis? So you basically have to get someone that is the target audience to pick them out from that group and put them into a watch brand. And then make the watch brand be open-minded enough to say, tell me what to do and trust this guy or girl, then you can get it right. But right now, they don't.
I think if someone really wanted to do it, like they can definitely do it. They just, at least like we aren't aware of someone or a brand that's doing that. But wouldn't you say like AP is doing a very good job with it? Because they're kind of like, yeah, sure, their watches are hard to get, but they're also riding off of that Patek hype wave. Because Pateks are like 5711s are so hard to get. Now they're bringing up the Rolex. I mean, the Rolex were always very hot, but they're even hotter now.
Yeah, I think AP is doing such a good job, and I totally think that they're doing product placement in a way that even I don't notice it. Yeah. So it's not just celebrities like we give you the watch for free, but I think it's showing up on people that I don't think it would be their first choice. And I think the problem with most people, like 98% of the population, I feel like people are going to kill me after they hear this, is that I use me as an example. I love the Royal Oak, right? But you get to a point now that you outgrow it, but then I still won't lie about it. So every time on Instagram, when someone messages me and says, what do you think about this Royal Oak? I really want to buy it. So they'll send a picture. Most of the time it's like a 15,500, right? Yeah. I would say it's a very nice looking watch, but it's not my thing anymore. So it's become a fun watch for me. So if you're looking for a fun watch, this is a great watch. So then in my head, I'm like, I'm not lying to you. But if my opinion about the Royal Oak hasn't changed in the past 5 years, say I still tell people it's my dream watch, it's the best, it's this and that. One, I don't think most people will think to themselves, man, she hasn't grown at all. I think most people would just take it at face value and be like,
like, of course, same as the 100,000 other people who think that, because it is such a classic design. But then because you've done the refinement and then you know about yourself a little bit more, like, okay, well, like, do I value the design? It's beautiful design, but then like maybe now you value the heritage or like the complications or whatever. But there's just like no denying the fact that it's like the hottest design right now in the watch world after a Nautilus. So
I think if I could work for a watch brand, if they had unlimited budget and I could just play around with a marketing idea, I would do, let's say I pick Austin and I could work with AP, right?
Yeah.
I would curate his collection so that you could see growth in the person. So it starts off with being the hype pieces. So all the whatever pieces he has, right? Yeah. But then you need to see him buy the pieces which are historically like actually significant in the history of AP. Not just saying, oh, let me get an A series, but actually go into all the other case shapes. And for that guy to be able to explain why he had to get that piece in that metal and what happened during that year and why he's getting it.
I think that's
then there's
really
a
smart.
Story. Yeah, there's a story.
Horror Loop is in a great position to educate.
Yeah.
And rather than maybe just pushing hype, what happens when the hype finishes?
Yeah.
Like maybe you want to have that stronger attachment because you educated the consumer as they were going along that journey. So, but I do think, you know, we had Lydia Winters on, and everything, you know, she mentioned something like, there's a lot of brands out there looking for new clients, new people to sell to, but then they might compromise on their branding a little bit, or their brand image, by using certain kind of KOLs. And she said that the brand sometimes should pick you, right? Rather than the client picking you. Because each brand has their own very specific philosophy and branding. It's actually, you know, probably their most high value thing that they do have to make them possible to charge a watch. You know, Vacheron, why can Vacheron charge this much and a Patek charge this much, right? I'm talking, okay, people are going to, but the finishing is better. Yeah, but a lot of the value is actually in the brand. So, you know, how much do they push that envelope? You see Patek, super successful. They've pretty much stuck to their principles all the way throughout, right? Which is just to make the best watches that they think they can, and maybe at their production number. You know, people can argue with me and say, oh, you know, they don't make the best watches. Yeah, okay, but all those other brands don't make 60,000, 70, 80,000 watches a year, right? So, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
This quick fire has turned into another podcast. So we gotta wrap this up. Okay, first, Alvin, thank you so much. Like, I feel like when I have so many more questions, but we gotta like stick to a time frame.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing. It was very interesting.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, really nice chatting with you guys.
And I have to plug in. So for those tuning in, if you want to find Alvin's work, do visit taichumusicclub.com, TAICHEW musicclub.com. Or I guess you could I wouldn't say email him, but you can go to Crown Watch Blog, look at the website, or you can even look for the magazine even. You can reach me, Dan and Jacqueline at the Waiting List Podcast IG, or myself at Long Thun, Daniel at Mr. Daniel Sum, and Jacqueline at A Dose of Time. So that's all. Till next time. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Waiting List podcast. Hit the subscribe button and the next episode will come straight to your phone as soon as it's ready. Whilst I'm here, please remember to leave a nice review and follow us on Instagram at the Waiting List podcast.